Welcome to the Student Attendance in GradeXpert 10 webinar. We'll be going for about 45 minutes and hopefully cover off everything that you'll need to know to get the attendance component of GradeXpert working for your school, ideally at the start of next year. While I'm going through the webinar, if anyone has any questions, you can type them into the chat box at the bottom of the TeamViewer window, and we'll see if we can get it answered straight away. If anyone has difficulty hearing me, or if my voice drops out, it's probably because I have a cold, but I'll keep going nonetheless. So, for schools looking to use GradeXpert for attendance, the existing attendance method is usually either a manual paper-based attendance, which is then transcribed by your office staff into cases or e-cases, or teachers are taking attendance directly in e-cases, and that feeds into cases as well. That of course has a number of issues. Firstly, paper-based attendance is very time-consuming and not very efficient, and we have had many schools who've gone over to GradeXpert attendance say that the GradeXpert system is far superior to e-cases, and hopefully you'll see a few of those reasons today. We only recommend using GradeXpert attendance from the start of a semester, not midway through a semester or term, and not a partial attendance. Either the whole school should go into GradeXpert attendance or not, instead of just a few classes to trial it. It should be all or nothing. So when we go into the GradeXpert system, what I'll do first is I'll show you what teachers will do on a twice daily basis, morning attendance and afternoon attendance. They'll log into GradeXpert as normal and then click a button called Attendance. GradeXpert will load up their class, automatically set the date to today, and automatically set whether we're AM or PM. You can see the AM or PM over here, and you can see today's date shown over here. Now, there are two ways to view your class list when you're taking attendance. There's a grid view, as you can see here, and there's a list view. The list view fits more students on the page, but you don't get to see a yearly summary of attendance broken down by term, and you don't get to see student photos, but you can switch between these two views at any time. And taking attendance is as simple as clicking present or late, and when you choose late or absent, you're prompted for a reason for the student being absent or late. These reasons and reason codes are aligned with the cases codes, so this is a shorter list, but the full list is much longer that you'd be using, and obviously that's something that we'll set up for you. But you would simply pick your late reason. In this case we'll just say late arrival at school, and we'll give it an optional comment. Broken finger. And then you simply move to the next student. Present. George is absent, and you choose the absent reasons, for example, family holiday, and so on. Now, if you are wanting to mark all students as present with a single click, that's a very simple process. There's a button down here in the bottom left called All Present, and if I click that, we'll overwrite the existing attendance for this afternoon, and you can see all students are now marked as present, and we can then simply go to individual students thereafter who we know are not present and mark them as absent. So, for example, if Freddie is absent, we're changing the PM absence from present to absent. And there you go. When teachers are finished taking attendance, they simply click the Save and Close button, And that is all teachers have to do. It's a very simple process. If I click Save Only, you can see how the view looks in a list view. So you can see this would be this morning's roll, and this would be this afternoon's roll. This is the same information, just presented in a different view. What we can do as well is we can go back any number of days or weeks or months. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go back to the 22nd of the 4th and look at attendance for my class for that day. So you can see Kelly is the only student who was absent that day from my class. And if we view this historical data in a list view, you'll see some interesting columns come up. It's mainly these columns over here. And these colored columns basically show us a 20-day or essentially a 1-month history of student absence leading up to whatever date we've got set over here. So if I make this, say, the 22nd of the 5th, where attendance wasn't taken because that's a Sunday. So just going back to the Friday, you can see the red squares indicate that a student was absent in both morning and afternoon. And if I click on that red square, you can see the reasons for the absence. And if you see a square that's only half red, for example, this one over here, you can see that she was present in the morning but absent in the afternoon, along with the reason code. So this means that teachers or even school leadership or front office staff can go into any day attendance for any cohort of students. We're only looking at the moment at Class 1B, but we can just as easily change it to 1s, 2s and 3s. This is obviously a small school or a small database, so we're just using this for testing. But you can see how easily you can look at historical data for any date, for any term, for any cohort of student. If we go back to our grid view, you'll notice obviously this is a different view to the list view, but one of the main differences is the ability to look at a breakdown per term of each student's attendance. So in term 1, we know that Freddie Fletcher was absent for 2.5 days, term 2 1 day, term 3 half a day, and term 4 1.5 days. And one of the cool things we can do here is just double click on that row. And that now brings up the attendance summary for that specific student for the selected term. And we can see day by day throughout the term what his morning and afternoon attendance status was. And as I move down, it'll go through all days in that term, and there are a couple of other little options on this attendance summary. One is to say show latent absence onlys, or show latent absent only. So all the days that he was present in both morning and afternoon are now hidden, and we can just see the reasons for his absences or lateness, and you can see that quite easily in the reason column. So this is all information that teachers have access to ongoingly. One of the really handy features of the GradeXpert attendance module is that if you're also using GradeXpert for your end of semester reporting, the attendance data, the number of days late, the number of days absent, the attendance rate as a percentage, all can be placed directly into the student report without any need to extract attendance data from any other system, because it's all contained within the GradeXpert database. So that's a big time saver for schools as well. Teachers don't have to retype any attendance rates, and you don't have to extract any attendance data out of any other system because it's all already within the GradeXpert database. So as I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box at the bottom of the TeamViewer window, but I'm certain we'll be able to cover all questions by the end of the seminar, the end of the webinar. So just to reiterate, we've got two views of attendance for any cohort of students. We have our grid view that you can see here. We have our list view, where you can fit more students on a single screen, and you would simply mark a student as present, late or absent by choosing the status from that drop-down list. And as soon as you choose something like absent, it could be illness, and the reason is their head fell off, which may happen. So as I mentioned, that's all teachers need to do. There's no need to upload any data to cases by teachers. That's all done by your admin staff, and we'll show you how easy that is to do in a moment. So we'll just save that information now. One of the other very cool features is the ability to set up extended absences. Now this is a very easy way to pre-mark your attendance roll if you know in advance that a student will be away for a holiday or a medical reason. And all you do then is you just say, I want to add in an extended absence because I know that, for example, Freddie is going to be away from the 10th of October to the 16th of October because he's on a family holiday to Italy, for example. What that does then is if we take attendance on any of those dates, so let's say the 10th of the 10th, you can see Freddie is marked as family holiday. Move forward to the next day, family holiday. Move forward to the next day, family holiday. So this means that your front office staff, or even your teachers, when they become aware of an upcoming extended absence, can put this into GradeXpert, and that student is then marked as absent on that day without the teacher needing to know where the student is. They'll simply see that the student's not in the class, and on the attendance roll they will see they've been pre-marked as absent for that reason. So that saves a lot of time. Now if a student is absent with an unexplained reason in the morning and comes back to school the next day, your front office staff can also go into this attendance screen and simply update the reason to the correct reason when they're presented with a doctor's note or a parent's note. So front office staff can go in any day for any cohort of students and update that information. Art. Alright, just to have a quick look at the setup of attendance in GradeXpert. This is something that we do for you. You generally don't need to go in and do it yourself, but to show you what the options are, this is your absence list or reason code for being absent. You can create new ones, but generally you would stick with the same absence codes that Cases offers. You would set up your school terms, and you would also put in any public holidays or curriculum days so that when teachers attempt to take attendance on those days, they're prevented from doing so because of whatever that reason is. You also have the ability to highlight poor attendance below a specific rate. So if your target in your school is 85% or higher per term, anything less than 85% in this list or in your summary will be highlighted in whichever color you've chosen. And that's pretty much all there is to do on the setup of the attendance details. Now, when you want to generate summary reports of attendance, there are a large number of options in GradeXpert. Actually, before I do that, I'd just like to show you so I just want to show you where the attendance data is presented to teachers when they're looking at a student's learning profile. So if I pick Mark Bridges, for example, if I just double click on his learning profile, we have the familiar 5 tabs, his notes, his results, learning plans, but his attendance values now, you can see his attendance rates for all 4 terms this year, and the longer he's at the school, and the longer you're using GradeXpert for attendance, the more attendance data you'll have going back any number of years. So we've only got 2016 data here, but next year we'll have 2016 and 2017. And as you can do on the attendance page, you can double click on any term and year in this screen to see a breakdown of his attendance for that term. So we can tick show late and absent only. So in term 3, these were the reasons why Mark was absent. Well, he was transferred, there was an unexplained absence, there's family holidays, early departure from school, and this data can feed directly, as we mentioned, directly into the student reporting system. You also might notice a little button down here that says Send Alerts to Parents. In GradeXpert 10, we've integrated the TickBiz parent communication tool with GradeXpert, and that means that if a school is using the TickBiz system, parents will get a notification on their smartphone for any student or their children who are marked as unexplained absences or unexplained lateness. And they get a notification on their smartphone that says, please contact the school because your child has been marked as unexplained absence for such and such a date. And that is a huge step towards improving communication with parents across the term for attendance. Basically, parents get an immediate notification that their student is away, and they need to contact the school and give an explanation. And that can be done the following day or the following week or however often you want to update your unexplained absence reasons. There's a question saying, will this be available through Connective as well? At the moment it's only available through TickBiz, specifically the parent communication, but we are working with other software companies who provide parent communication systems to see if we can integrate GradeXpert easily into those. So the next step is to look at your summary of attendance data. So you can just click on the attendance summary screen, and that basically, let me just reset our filters. That will basically give you a summary of any range of information that you've chosen to look at. So I'm going to change our dates to go from the 22nd of the 4th to say the 22nd of the 5th this year. And what GradeXpert will now do is load each individual student's attendance data for that day and then summarize that in a single screen. So for example, we're looking here at Freddie Fletcher, 22nd of the 4th, he was present. 26th, 27th, 28th. In fact, if we say show late and absence onlys, you can then quite easily see students who are late and absent. But one very handy feature is this missing attendance only. Now it's not displaying anything here, but this is a very useful tool for principals or assistant principals to use to say, for today's attendance, it might be 9:30 a.m. and everyone is supposed to have taken attendance. Show me which classes have not yet recorded attendance. So this is a central location where you can very easily pick up any teachers or classes who haven't yet taken attendance and walk over to their class and smash them over the head with a bat and tell them to do their job. Of course, no schools ever do that, but it is possible. Now, if we get rid of missing attendance, and we just look at today's attendance, I'll just cancel that. I'm just going to look at today's attendance. You can see quite easily that it's very easy to go to look at a month's history, this week, just today. But some of the other things that you can do with these reports is look at students not by day, but students by term. So what we're saying is now Freddie for 2016 term 4 was absent for 1.5 days. Well, we've only taken attendance for year 1 in term 4, but we can just say 22nd of the 4th to the 22nd of the 4th again, for example. And now we can see all the term 2 outcomes. These students are 98, 92, 93. There's very good attendance at the school, isn't there? Or we can look at attendance summaries by class. So if you click class instead, you can see 1B. So we're not looking at individual students anymore, we're looking at a whole class at a time. So in year 1, class 1B has a 94% attendance rate. Year 5 has a 96% attendance rate for that particular class. And then we can further summarize data by an entire year level. So you can quite easily see now that our year 2s have got the lowest attendance rate, and our best attendance is year 3s and year 5s. This is for term 2, of course. We can just expand the date range to look at a lot more information. All of these reports, of course, can be printed. And as part of future updates, these will be able to be easily graphed as well. But this is really the central point of data then for attendance at the school. The next step would be to extract the data from GradeXpert and import that into cases. That's a process that takes perhaps 5 minutes at a time and should be done really depending on the amount of students that you have at the school. Sorry, that's not particularly accurate. You can do the extract as often as you like. The department requires the information to go in at least once per semester from an external attendance system to cases. But the option is there to put it in even more frequently. Some schools import data once a week. Some schools import data into cases once every term. It really depends on the school, and there's no downside to doing it more often. And the way that that is imported is just by using an extract function in GradeXpert called extract attendance. So there's an example of what the extract attendance looks like from GradeXpert. You simply choose a date range, 3rd of the 5th to the 23rd of the 6th, whatever we want, and you click a button that says extract now. What that has done has created a CSV file, which is like an Excel file with no formatting, that can then be imported into cases with a couple of clicks. Now, we've obviously got this process running very smoothly at a number of schools in Victoria, and teachers are loving it because it's so easy to use. They're loving seeing the attendance details on your student map as well. The reason why that's useful is because your attendance values or your attendance rates are often correlated to the student's performance. So poor attendance rates would often correlate to poor outcomes in tests. So being able to see the attendance rate on a map is hugely useful to be able to put some of that assessment, some of those assessment outcomes into context, into perspective. So that's another benefit of having that attendance data directly into GradeXpert. Now, when you're bringing your attendance data into cases, That is a very quick process, as we've mentioned already, but the cases system doesn't store imported attendance data in the same place as it stores eCases data. What that means is that you don't have access to the same reports in cases that you would if you were using eCases exclusively. There are a number of reports you can use in cases to generate attendance reports, but it's a much smaller subset of reports. Generally, most of the reports that you need will be available from GradeXpert. We're improving our attendance summary reports all the time, and obviously if anyone has any other requirements or reports that they use at their school that they don't find in GradeXpert, we'll put that into GradeXpert so that you do have everything that you need. That's pretty much all there is to the attendance in GradeXpert. Hopefully we've shown you how straightforward it is. The ideal way to implement attendance at your school is to, with our assistants, set up all your terms for 2017, set up your your attendance reason code list. That whole process takes only a few minutes, and we would then recommend teachers either watch a recording of this webinar or follow a very easy to use guide that we produce on taking attendance. That is basically just the steps to follow to take attendance. But generally, once teachers have taken attendance once or twice, it becomes a very easy process, and also ensures that teachers go into GradeXpert every day, which will ideally improve the usage of other areas of GradeXpert as well. So there was a question, where do you press to extract data for cases? You have to be an administrator to do that, but basically you go to the Options menu, Database Utilities, Administrator Utilities, and by the way, we've got step-by-step guides for all these processes, so you don't have to write anything down now. But under Administrator Utilities, the first item is Export Attendance. And when you run that, you've got your Export Attendance window coming up, which you can run, as we've mentioned, as often as you like. Some schools even import attendance data into cases daily, and when the student or absent student returns to school with a valid reason, and that gets updated in GradeXpert, the school simply re-exports that information from GradeXpert into cases, and it overwrites the unexplained absence reason in cases with the actual absence reason that was entered into GradeXpert. Now, if anyone has any questions, please type them into the screen at the bottom. There's questions come up. How do specialist staff and CRT gain access to record absences? Well, specialist staff basically have their own, or would have their own login to GradeXpert, and they would simply select the class that they are relieving, or the teacher that they are relieving for the day, and take attendance for that day for them. And specialists are exactly the same. We would have a specialist class set up, or the specialist, it kind of depends on what happens at the school with the specialist. If specialists are meant to take attendance, they can quite easily take attendance for a whole class, or just for the students taking their subject. So that's a very straightforward process as well. Does anyone have any other questions? And if so, just type them into the chat box and we'll see if we can answer them straight away. And there was another question to confirm staff have access to all grades. I'm not quite sure what that question is, but if your GradeXpert system has been set up to allow a teacher access to a specific class, they'll only be able to see that class. But even if they have access to all students in the school, only their class needs to be shown when they're taking attendance. They don't have to see all classes. It does mean, though, of course, they can choose attendance for any class. But we'll work with each school to set that up in a way that suits the way the school operates. We're going to make this webinar, well, we're recording this webinar and we'll make it available to certainly everyone who's participated here, but to other schools as well. So if you want to show this to other staff members when you're going to be possibly implementing GradeXpert's attendance system next year, this is a very good resource to be able to look through. Alright, ladies and gents, if there are no other questions, we'll end it there. I'd like to thank everybody for your time and attention, and hopefully you are using GradeXpert Attendance next year and all your lives become way easier. So enjoy the rest of the day, and keep an eye out for an email with this recorded webinar available. Thanks everybody, and good night.